Right, so this is your next revision video then, and I've chosen to do robbery and burglary combined, seeing as this is one of your mock options for Monday and Tuesday. So again, I've just made some brief notes on the piece of paper that you can see on the screen, and I'm just basically just going to confirm the key areas that you need to prove. This is obviously more important because it is an area of interest for Section Bs as well. So you can get pure theft Section Bs, you could get theft robbery, theft burglary, you could get a mixture of all three. So because property is quite popular as a Section B, it's key really that you know your key cases. Right, so my focus obviously is just if it's an essay then at the minute. So starting with robbery then, you've got your four main things that you need to prove. So really you could set this out as your four main paragraphs. So TFTP, theft, force, timing and purpose. So if we start with the theft then, clearly if there's no theft then there can't be a theft charge, so you're never going to get a robbery charge. So it's probably quite a key thing that we need to establish first of all. And all I've done is I've included a case that shows it and a case that doesn't. So you've got Corcoran and Anderton there. Your key thing from Corcoran and Anderton, obviously, that you do need all 5 elements of theft. And Corcoran showed all 5 elements of theft. It doesn't matter that they never got away with the property, because the minute that they touched the handbag, they'd satisfied all 5 areas. So the theft was there. They don't need that sole possession, and that success wasn't relevant there as well. But it does show that full theft element. Whereas Skivington, because Skivington was able to successfully argue 2-1A, therefore not dishonest. If you're not dishonest, then there's no theft, so therefore no robbery. So I've just shown you there an element of each, which is always quite good to do. Then we move on to force. So your next paragraph would be on force. I've tried to keep it pretty simple here. If it is, as I've just put on this right hand side here, if it is alone, you do your 12 as normal. So if it was just a robbery essay, obviously you wouldn't get away with doing these few cases, and there's loads of force cases. So I've only included your main 2 really, Dawson and James, which set your test, but then Bentham that set obviously if it's threatened force. But you have got quite a lot of other cases. So you've got Clouden, your force against property, you've got BR and DPP, you've got RPDPP, you've got quite a lot of force cases that you could use there should you wish. I've just stuck with the main 2 for now because obviously I'm doing this structure as a joint essay. So you've got Dawson and James setting your test. You've got to modify the victim's movement, which again is important for your Section B, because if you're applying robbery, when you get to the force aspect, if it is force that they've used, you must apply that test. Bentham is just threatened use of force. As long as they intend to put you in fear, that will then amount to the threat of force. Timing, I've just kept it nice and simple with hail. So immediately before or at the time, but also linking in the fact that it can be classed as continuing. So even if your force is technically after the theft, like in Hale, because they did tie her up after they stole the jewellery box, it is held to be a continuing act. Very good for robbery, but very inconsistent, because with theft, your appropriation is instant. It doesn't continue over time. So you've got that mishap there with the 2 offences. And then finishing off with purpose. So your purpose has always got to be to steal. If your purpose is anything else, then it won't work. And we've got Donaghy there as a result. Okay, so I've just kept it to those 6 cases because, as I've said, I'm giving you the sort of guidance here to structure it as an essay. So I'd use your 4 paragraphs, plan those cases within there. Obviously, knock it down to 10 if you're feeling a little bit too much. Trying to plan for 12. Then if we move on to the burglary aspect then, basically, burglary again can be quite a prominent part of a Section B. And what you have got to remember with burglary is you have got 9-1A and you have got 9-1B to consider. And they do need clear definitions. Now, when we did Carlos and Pierre as your Section B, you just have to remember there as a result that your 9-1A and 9-1B, they do need good definitions, probably more so at the beginning. So just make sure you plan a distinction between the 2. 3 key areas then, EBT, entry building trespasser, so it's smaller than robbery. You'll probably find you are writing less than robbery, but I've tried to keep your cases more or less the same. So again, I've kept it to 6 there, so you've got your 6 and 6 even split. Entry, I would just stick with Ryan. You're okay to use the others, and I'll reference them as principal cases. But Ryan is obviously your main one there as a result, because it said that the entry doesn't need to be substantial or effective. It never actually set the test any insertion. That's not actually come from any cases. It's just we've assumed that that's what we're using today. So when you do write out Ryan, make sure you don't say that it's set any insertion, because that's wrong. It's just changed it to not substantial or effective, which basically does mean any insertion. Again, important because you would apply that to a section B. Then I've gone on building. You can see I've used 3 there. So Stevens and Gourlay actually set what a building has to be, fairly permanent and considerable size. So that's quite important that you've got that. Seekins and Gould shows when it isn't a building. So I've chose that purposely, just because with that one, that's one with your wheels. So it's not a building if it's got wheels and it's not lived in. It's got to be inhabited there as a result. And then obviously you've got Walkington there, which is showing part of. So you've got like quite a good range there. You've got the definition. If it's got wheels, it's got to be lived in, and then part of a building. It can still class there as a result. That's just covering you back there, especially for a section B, because that would be expected. So like again with Carlos and Pierre, because Katie had gone into the office in that section B, she was allowed in the school because she's a student. So really your key case should have been Walkington to show that aspect. And then finally we've got trespassing. So you must be a trespasser. Between me and you, you've got your T1, T2, T3, but obviously you don't refer to them like that in the exam. You just go through the 3 different types. So no permission, permission but venture into prohibited area, or exceeds permission completely. Collins did not get the charge here because he wasn't a trespasser whatsoever. He didn't fit any of those categories because he was invited in. Jones and Smith satisfies T3 because they exceeded permission, allowed in to watch TV, watch over the house, but not to steal items from there. So again, that covers you. So really what you're probably looking at with practicing this essay for next week, and obviously the real exam, is your 4 paragraphs for robbery and your 3 paragraphs for burglary. Obviously each one will need an intro, so one there and one there for your intro, but that's my sort of suggested structure. Please do remember though, it is still possible for you to get them alone in your real exam, so you would need to then bulk your cases out there as a result. So like with burglary, I'd probably then add your other entry cases, or building, I'd add anything else in there that you want to, or I'd just add more to robbery potentially, again if you're doing a robbery one.